My name's Alex. I'm 51. I used to live just outside Phoenix, Arizona, in a house that once felt like a home. Back when the air didn't taste like shame. Back when I still believed that effort could buy love. I married Molly when her daughter, Tessa, was 10. Tessa had a biological dad, Jonathan, who drifted in and out of her life like smoke. Never solid enough to hold. Never gone long enough to grieve. His presence came in texts. Happy birthday, Princess Partying Face Redheart, or so proud of you. Hugs and kisses. Words that cost nothing. Words sent from beaches I never stood on. From restaurants I couldn't afford because I was home fixing her mother's sink or helping Tessa cram for exams. Jonathan existed in photographs, always filtered, always smiling. He had perfect teeth, a new girlfriend every fall, and a leather wristwatch that caught the light in every picture. Tessa had his jawline, his eyes, his ability to vanish without apology. Everything else, rent, clothes, doctor bills, her therapy after 7th grade when the bullying got bad, that was all me. I paid for her braces. I refinanced my truck so she could go to that design camp in Portland. I memorized gluten-free brands. I switched health insurance plans just to keep her pediatrician. I stayed up till 2 a.m. making flashcards for her SATs. She fell asleep on the couch. I finished them anyway. I was there the night she got food poisoning and sobbed on the bathroom floor. I was there every time she screamed at her mother and slammed her door. I was the one who stood outside, breathing in the silence like poison, wondering if someday she'd come back out and look at me differently, wondering if one day I'd stop being the placeholder. I was the one who showed up, day after day, year after year. But the older she got, the less she saw me. That wasn't a metaphor. It was physical. At 11, she still reached for my hand at red lights. At 12, she stopped letting me tuck her in. At 13, she asked me to park at the back of the school so no one would see. At 14, she got a phone, and with it, a new universe that didn't include me. By 16, she barely said my name. She started referring to me in the third person. He said I can't go, or he's picking me up. Never Alex. Never Dad. At 17, I co-signed the student loans. She got into a small design program out of state. Molly cried with pride. I nodded and smiled and paid the deposit. Tessa told her mom, "You're the best." Seriously. I was standing 10 feet away, holding the envelope. Molly turned to me afterward and whispered, "She meant both of us." Like that counted for something. But it didn't. It never did. At 19, Tessa asked Molly to come to her final critique in San Diego. When I offered to drive, I'd paid for the hotel after all. She said, "I think it'll be less stressful if it's just Mom." No explanation. No thanks. Just the assumption that I'd nod and swallow it. And I did. Because that's what you do when you love someone who only sees you when they need something. Because I told myself it would all turn eventually. That when she got older, maybe 23, maybe 30, she'd look back and realize who kept the lights on, who stayed, who didn't post selfies but paid tuition. That someday, somehow, she'd understand. I clung to that belief like a drowning man clings to a piece of wreckage. Because I needed to believe the sacrifice meant something. That it wasn't just duty. That it was love and love would be enough. But love doesn't count if the other person refuses to cash it. I started noticing how she'd light up when Jonathan commented on her Instagram photos, looking stunning, Tess Redheart, and how she'd show Molly with a little laugh, like she'd just been noticed by royalty. When I complimented her, she'd nod, maybe mumble, "Thanks," and keep scrolling. That was the difference. He gave words. I gave everything else. And still, I hoped. I hoped during the nights when Molly would whisper in bed, "She's just going through a phase." I hoped when Tessa left dirty dishes out and glared if I asked her to rinse them. I hoped when she told her therapist, in front of me, "I feel like there's a lot of pressure in this house." Like I wasn't the one who begged her to go in the first place. I even hoped when she missed my birthday dinner because the drive was just too far. Molly said, "She feels bad. She really does. But feelings aren't facts. And facts are simple. Tessa didn't want me. She wanted what I gave her. My presence. My labor. My wallet. My silence. Not me. And still, I told myself, one more year. One more semester. One more summer where maybe, just maybe, she'd come home and see the man who stood in the fire for her without asking for a thank you. I even let her keep using the car after she moved out. Told her just to pay gas. She said, sure. Then drove it 4 states away and forgot to renew the insurance. That was the rhythm. I'd give. She'd take. Molly would smooth it over. And I'd stay. Because I believed the biggest lie a stepfather can ever believe. That showing up is enough. That love can outrun blood. That sacrifice writes its own reward. But the truth? If your name means nothing in the family, then your love means nothing, too. You're just a set of hands, the ones that carry, lift, pay, fix, and hold, until they don't need holding anymore. And when that day comes, when they no longer need the ride or the check or the roof, you find out just how invisible you've been all along. You find out you were never the man. Just the help. Just the man who stayed behind when the photo was taken. It happened in a hospital hallway. Pale blue walls, the scent of antiseptic and panic clinging to everything. Tessa had suffered an allergic reaction. Something in the restaurant food, she said. Molly called me breathless, sobbing into the phone. I dropped everything at work and sped to the ER. When I arrived, Tessa was pale, her breathing shallow, and 4 dripping antihistamines into her arm. The nurse glanced at me, clipboard in hand. Are you the father? Before I could answer, Tessa spoke. Her voice was clear, sharp, like it had been rehearsed. Him? His name doesn't mean anything in this family. 16 words. That's all it took. Not a scream, not an outburst, just a flat, surgical statement. Delivered without hesitation, without shame. I froze. The doctor looked at me, pen hovering, waiting for confirmation, but I'd already been erased. I nodded once, not in agreement, not in denial. Just acknowledgement. Then I turned and walked out. No argument, no confrontation, just silence. I sat in the car, staring at the steering wheel. The heat pressed in through the windows. My shirt stuck to my back. I could still hear her voice. Not in memory, it echoed, like it had been branded inside my skull. His name doesn't mean anything in this family. Not, he's not my dad. Not, I'd rather my mom sign. No. She went further. She declared me null. It wasn't just rejection. It was deletion. I called my lawyer. That night, I sat alone in the living room with a notepad and a laptop. No television. No music. Just the hum of the air conditioner and the click of the keys. I started with the obvious. Health insurance, she was off. Gone from the plan. No more deductibles. No more copays at my expense. Then the car, I canceled her use authorization. It was still registered in my name. She'd be driving illegally the next morning. Bank account, she was unlinked. No more overdraft protections. No more quiet Venmo transfers when rent was due. Student loans. I contacted the servicer and informed them I was revoking all future payment promises. She could pay her portion or default. Her choice. Emergency contact forms. Gone. I removed myself from her university records. If something went wrong again, they'd have to call Jonathan. Let the ghost do some lifting. The will rewritten. I kept Molly in. I took Tessa out. Every clause where she once stood now stood empty. Every click, every signature, every stroke of the pen felt like an exorcism. Not from hate, from clarity. Because you can't hold someone who keeps cutting your hands open. And this wasn't a tantrum. This was policy. A quiet, deliberate removal of obligations no longer earned. I didn't tell Molly. Not right away. I didn't need to. Tessa had already told us both what I was. Or rather, what I wasn't. I wasn't her father. So I stopped being her fallback. The next morning, Molly was quiet. She'd spent the night at the hospital. When she walked in, she looked exhausted, but not surprised. She didn't ask why I hadn't come back. She poured coffee. I sat at the table, already dressed for work. She said, "The doctors had to use epinephrine. It was close." I nodded. "I'm glad she's okay." She nodded too. She didn't mean it. I looked at her. Yes, she did. Molly's eyes filled with tears. But she didn't deny it. She just said, "She's scared. She lashes out." "She didn't lash out," I said. "She aimed." Silence followed. A thick, guilty silence. Later that afternoon, I got the first call. "Tessa." I let it go to voicemail. Then a second. Then a text. "I need to talk to you. Urgent." I ignored it. That evening, another message. "They won't release the follow-up prescription without consent. They said you're still the guarantor." I wasn't. I waited. And then came the one I knew would arrive eventually. "You had no right to erase me like that." I stared at the screen. "No right?" She said I meant nothing. I simply agreed with her. That night, Molly sat at the table, her hands trembling. "You took her off everything?" "Yes. She's just a kid. She's 21. She was scared. She was honest. She didn't mean it like that. She meant it exactly like that." Molly broke. Her face collapsed into her hands. "You did everything for her. She just doesn't see it." I didn't answer, because that was the truth I'd lived with for over a decade. The fantasy that love would be seen. That effort would someday balance the scales. But some debts never get paid. Some people collect and call it normal. So I stopped the transaction. I wasn't angry. I wasn't spiteful. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I was finished. I had given her 14 years. 14 years of groceries and gas money and tire rotations. 14 years of softened discipline, of quiet presence, of making sure her mother didn't have to struggle. And in return, a sentence in a hospital hallway. "His name doesn't mean anything in this family." Fine. Then my name wouldn't appear on the bills, or the checkbook, or the insurance, or the car, or the lease, or the degree, or the will. I had been a father in every way but biology. And now I wasn't even that. So I left only what biology ever promised her. Nothing. 2 days later, the ripple began. Started small. A call from Molly while I was at work. Her voice was sharp, brittle at the edges. "Tessa's at urgent care. They need a signature on a release form. She told them to call you." I didn't respond. "You're still listed," Molly pressed. "You said you removed her." "I did. They say otherwise." "Then they're slow." She didn't answer. Just hung up. That was the first crack in her voice. Not sadness. Not confusion. Panic. Later that evening, another call. "Tessa again." I ignored it. Then a text. "Seriously? You're just going to ghost me?" I didn't reply. An hour passed. Then another. "I'm trying to be civil. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Harder than what? Harder than being told I meant nothing? Harder than realizing that after over a decade of sacrifice, I was a line item to be crossed off? I poured a drink. Then it came. "You had no right to erase me. You're punishing me for one comment." One comment. That's what she called it. Like it had slipped out. Like she tripped and fell into betrayal. Like erasing 14 years of love, labor, and loyalty was an accident. I still didn't respond. And then the real storm began. She called Molly. And Molly, of course, came to me. We were in the kitchen. I was washing dishes. She leaned on the counter, arms crossed, voice tight. "She's scared. She should be. She didn't mean it." "Yes, she did. She said she was sorry." "No, she didn't." Molly hesitated. "She said she was overwhelmed. She didn't mean to say what she said." I dried a plate. "Then she should have told the doctor to call her real father." She panicked. "She told the truth." Molly's eyes filled. "You're her only father, Alex." I laughed. One short, bitter exhale. "Tell her that." Molly stepped closer. "You've been there since she was 10. You've done everything for her." "I know. She's still learning. She's 21. She's hurting. So am I." That stopped her. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked away. That was when I knew. She wasn't just sad. She was scared. Scared because for the first time in 14 years the system had stopped. The engine was off. The pipeline of quiet financial rescue was dry. And it wasn't just Tessa who'd grown used to it. I had been their gravity. They had never felt weightless before. And now they were drifting. 2 more days. Then the texts changed tone. Tessa again. Mom said you canceled the car insurance. Are you serious? What am I supposed to do for school? For work? You can't just back out of everything. That's not fair. Fair. The word rang like a bell inside my skull. Was it fair when I stood outside that emergency room, knowing I wasn't considered family? Was it fair when I co-signed a loan and didn't even get a thank you? Was it fair to spend $27,000 across 4 years on someone who'd delete me with a single sentence? No. It was convenient. And I was done being convenient. Molly came to me that night with a stack of papers, financial aid forms, account access requests, pharmacy bills. She needs help. So does every adult. She's falling apart. She built the wall. Let her live behind it. She was just upset. She was honest. Molly began to cry. She's my daughter. I know. She's not yours. I know. That silence broke something between us. Something soft. Something I'd held on to, even in the worst years. The belief that Molly and I were a team. That behind all the complications we stood shoulder to shoulder. But that night she stood on the other side. She wasn't asking for help. She was demanding it. Not for love, but for maintenance. The system had to keep running. I poured another drink. She told the world I meant nothing. She regrets it. Tell her to call Jonathan. You know he won't. Exactly. Molly went quiet, and I finally said it. If I have no place in the family, then my money has no place in it either. She turned away. I watched her shoulders shake. But I didn't comfort her. Because I was finally mourning the thing I should have grieved long ago. The illusion that love guarantees respect. The collapse didn't come all at once. It came in pulses. Bills deferred, doors slammed, silences stretched until they snapped. First it was the car. Tessa called, I didn't answer. She texted, "Towed. Are you kidding me?" The plates were expired. Insurance was canceled. Her first adult crisis. And the first time she felt the absence of me not as a man but as a structure. She didn't say, I'm sorry. She said, you've made your point. As if this were a lecture. As if the removal of my labor was performance art, and not what it had always been. A favor she mistook for a duty. Then came the tuition notice. Not to her. To me. The email account was still linked. Amount due. $6,410. Final warning. I didn't forward it. I deleted it. 2 days later, Molly slammed a stack of mail on the table. They're sending notices to the house. She's going to be dropped from enrollment. I sipped my coffee. She can reapply. Next semester. She'll lose credits. She'll lose more pretending I'm her enemy and her benefactor at the same time. She's scared. She's a stranger. That was the conversation now. Molly repeating variations of panic, and me replying with the truth. Because that's what the last 14 years had trained me for. Staying quiet, being the bridge. But this time the bridge had burned, and I hadn't lit the match. Molly said, she's not asking for everything. Just help until she gets back on her feet. I looked at her, and for the first time I said the words out loud. She was never on her feet. She stood on mine. Molly flinched, and in that moment she knew. The groceries, the clothes, the design camp, the laptop, the car, the insurance, the rent, the pharmacy pickups, the student loan deposits, the $80 here, $300 there, the winter coat, the summer internship housing. Every inch of Tessa's ascent had been paid for in silence. And now that the account was closed, they were both looking for the receipts. But I had burned them, because love, when it becomes currency, turns poisonous. They tried guilt. Tessa left a voicemail. You've always been the one I counted on. I don't understand why you're doing this. But she did. She just didn't like it. They tried anger. You're acting like a child. Molly snapped one morning. You're throwing away everything you've built with her. I didn't argue, because they were both right. I had built everything, and now I was walking away. But I wasn't doing it out of rage. I was doing it out of clarity. They had erased me the moment it was convenient. Tessa with her words, Molly with her silence. Now they wanted the benefits of me, not the man, not the role, just the utility. They didn't miss me. They missed the funding. The reality settled hard. They weren't calling to rebuild a bond. They were calling to restore service. Like I was a utility company, not a father. The final message from Tessa came one Friday night. I don't care what you think I said. I never asked you to be my dad. You just decided to be, and now you want credit for it. That's not fair. I read it 3 times. Then I deleted it. I poured myself a drink. Sat on the porch. Let the quiet soak in. She was right. She never asked me. And I never asked for thanks. But there's a difference between not asking for something and pretending it never existed. She had taken everything I'd given and now wanted to rewrite the narrative as if it had cost me nothing. As if being the man who stayed didn't matter because the man who vanished gave her his eyes and his last name. So I gave her what she wanted. Silence. Absence. A future funded by anyone but me. Let Molly co-sign the loans. Let Jonathan answer the phone. Let them call each other when the tire blows, when the landlord calls, when the debt collectors show up. Let them hold the weight I carried alone. Let them understand what it means to be present. Because now I was gone. Not in anger, not in spite, but in principle. And they were going to learn the hardest lesson a family can learn. That a man who pays without being seen will one day vanish without saying goodbye.